Captain Eli Reyes had seen some strange things in space: star-eating clouds, pirate drones, even a planet made entirely of coral. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to trying to understand Zira. Zira of the Lithurian ascendancy was beautiful in a way that made the universe feel unfair. She wasn't human, not exactly. Her skin shimmered faintly under light, not with glitter, but with a living, soft glow like moonlight through water. Her eyes were silver pools that caught reflections like mirrors, and her voice was calm, melodic, as if she spoke with the rhythm of the stars. And somehow, that was who Eli was stuck with for 3 weeks on a cargo mission to the edge of the Vega Rift. Just him, one sarcastic human captain, and one overly curious alien scientist who treated every joke like a field study. The day had been long. The Starlets had drifted through a radiation storm, half its systems blinking red, and Eli had spent 10 hours in the engineering bay patching leaks and recalibrating stabilizers. By the time the alarms stopped, he looked like he'd been hugged by a black hole. He stumbled into the corridor, hair messy, jumpsuit half-zipped, and muttered, "If I ever volunteer for another repair shift, someone please eject me out the airlock." From behind him came a soft, puzzled voice. "Would that not result in death?" Eli groaned. "Zira, it's a figure of speech." She tilted her head, blinking her luminous eyes. "Ah, an expression not meant to be taken literally. Humans do this often." "Yeah," he said, rubbing his face. "It's what keeps us sane." They walked side by side toward the mess hall. The ship's hum filled the silence, steady but faintly uneven, like a heartbeat still recovering from panic. Zira moved with strange grace, almost floating, her steps light and deliberate. She wore a silver uniform that shimmered faintly, and her bioluminescent freckles pulsed gently as she spoke. "I have been studying your culture," she said suddenly. "Your people seem to express emotion through humor. It is fascinating." "Oh, humor's our superpower," Eli said. "That and coffee." "Coffee." He chuckled. "You don't want to know, trust me." When they reached the mess hall, it was empty, the rest of the crew asleep, or avoiding the lingering metallic smell of coolant. Eli grabbed a protein bar from the dispenser and leaned against the table with a sigh. "You know, Zira, sometimes I think this ship hates me." "The Starlets is a machine," she replied. "Machines cannot hate." He smiled faintly. "You clearly haven't met this one." She blinked, thoughtful. That was humor again, wasn't it? "You're getting better at this," he said with a grin. She looked oddly proud. "I have been practicing. I told Lieutenant Miko a joke earlier." "Oh boy," Eli said, bracing himself. "What kind of joke?" She looked serious. "It involved an amoeba and a toaster." He blinked. "I don't think I want to know how that ends." Neither did Miko. He left the room quickly. Eli laughed, shaking his head. "That sounds about right." For a moment they just stood there, the low hum of the ship filling the space between them. There was something almost peaceful about it, the quiet after chaos, the calm heartbeat of the void. Then Zira looked at him curiously and asked, "Do humans often form emotional bonds with their crewmates?" Eli blinked. Depends on the crew." "I see," she said, expression unreadable. "On Lithuria, we share rest space with those we trust. It helps regulate bioenergy and emotional balance." Eli raised a brow. "You sleep together for emotional balance." "Yes, it strengthens connection." He snorted. "Well, that explains a lot of your psychology papers." Zira blinked slowly. "Would you share your rest space with someone you trusted?" The question caught him off guard. He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "I mean, maybe, if it got cold enough." She nodded, genuinely considering it. "Noted." "Zira," he said with a grin, "I was kidding." Her brows furrowed. "Kidding?" "It means joking, not serious." "Ah," she nodded thoughtfully again, then wrote something down in her glowing datapad. Eli squinted. "Are you taking notes on my jokes again?" "Of course," she said matter-of-factly. Human humor may hold the key to interspecies empathy. Eli groaned, "You're impossible. I prefer curious." He laughed again, shaking his head. "Fine, fine. Just promise me you won't quote my jokes in your next science report." "I promise," she said, with the tiniest curve of a smile that made her glow brighten slightly. He smirked. "Good, because next thing I know, you'll be telling your research council that I invited you to share my bed." There was a pause. Zira tilted her head. "You invited me." "What, no," Eli sputtered. "That was another joke." "Ah," she said, nodding again. But the gleam in her eyes was strange, thoughtful, as if she were storing the idea away for later analysis. Eli groaned and covered his face. "You're going to get me in trouble one day." "I do not wish to cause you harm," she said softly. He looked up, and for a second her tone was so sincere it caught him off guard. Her eyes shimmered with emotion not human, but still somehow felt. "I know you don't," he said gently. The air between them grew quiet, fragile. Somewhere beyond the hull, distant stars shimmered like silver dust, the vast universe waiting for their next mistake, their next discovery. Eli broke the silence with a crooked smile. "You know, for a scientist, you're pretty good at making my heart race." Zira blinked. "Does that indicate distress?" He chuckled softly. "No, Zira, it means you're interesting." She tilted her head again, a faint golden glow rippling across her cheeks. "Then I am pleased to be interesting to you, Captain." He laughed, shaking his head, but there was warmth in it, the kind that crept under your skin and stayed there. Outside, the stars drifted silently by, and somewhere in the hum of the starlets, Destiny smiled, amused at the human who joked too easily, and the alien who took everything to heart. The starlets drifted quietly through the Vega Rift, a silver dart cutting across a sea of starlight. Inside, most of the crew slept peacefully, wrapped in the hum of recycled air and soft mechanical whirs. Except Captain Eli Reyes. He was freezing. The ship's heating system had died 2 hours ago, and even wrapped in 3 thermal blankets, he could see his breath fogging in the air. The temperature display blinked 7 degrees C, not deadly, but unpleasant enough to make him regret every life choice that led to commanding a half-broken cargo ship. He muttered under his breath, "Perfect, just perfect. I survived plasma storms and pirates only to die from space winter." That's when his door hissed open. Zira stood there, glowing faintly in the dark hallway, her silver eyes reflecting the light like polished glass. She was wrapped in a long, shimmering blanket made of alien fabric that looked both soft and alive. "Captain Reyes," she said softly, "the environmental systems have failed. You require warmth." Eli blinked, teeth chattering slightly. "You don't say." She stepped closer, her bioluminescence brightening slightly as she spoke. "I have calculated that prolonged exposure at this temperature could cause severe human discomfort or injury." He gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, that sounds about right." Then she tilted her head, that same curious, innocent motion that had become her signature. "You invited me to share your rest space for warmth, yes?" Eli froze. "I what?" Her tone was calm, factual. "During our last conversation, you suggested sharing your bed in the event of low temperature. This event has now occurred." He gawked. "That was a joke, Zira." She blinked. "Was it?" "Yes." "I see," she said slowly. "Then I misunderstood." There was a pause. She turned slightly, her glow dimming just a little, and somehow that simple gesture made Eli feel like the worst man in the galaxy. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Wait, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." She looked up, puzzled. "My feelings are not hurt. I am uncertain. Humans say many things that do not mean what they sound like." He exhaled, running a hand through his messy hair. "Yeah, we do that, a lot." Her eyes softened. "You are shivering." "I'm fine," he lied. She stepped closer until she was right in front of him. Your lips are blue. That's just my fashion choice, he said weakly, his humor cracking under his chattering teeth. Zira frowned, clearly unconvinced. Your physical condition suggests otherwise. Before he could stop her, she took his hand. Her skin was cool at first, but there was a strange energy beneath, a soft, pulsing warmth that traveled through his fingers like static. You are cold, she whispered. And you're kind of glowing more than usual, he murmured, staring at the soft golden light now spreading from her hand to his. It is my bioenergy adjusting to yours, she said. My species can share warmth through contact. Right, of course you can, Eli muttered, because nothing in my life is ever simple. She smiled faintly, though he could tell she didn't fully understand his sarcasm. Come, she said gently. My quarters retain heat longer. You will be more comfortable there. Zira, I can't just. Captain, she interrupted softly, you are trembling. He opened his mouth to argue again, but then another shiver ran through him, and the argument died on his tongue. Fine, he grumbled, lead the way. Zira's quarters were dim, lit by the soft glow of Lithurian crystal lamps that pulsed gently like fireflies. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something floral, almost electric. Her bed was unlike anything human, a circular nest made of silky fibers that shimmered with faint light, warm and soft to the touch. This is cozy, he said carefully. It adapts to temperature and weight, she explained, sitting gracefully on one side. You may join me. He hesitated. Zira, this is really not standard protocol. Neither is freezing to death. He couldn't argue with that. With a resigned sigh, Eli climbed into the nest. The warmth hit him instantly, surrounding him like a gentle current. The material shifted and molded to his body, radiating comfort. Zira adjusted her blanket to cover them both, her glow dimming to a soft gold. He lay stiffly at first, staring at the ceiling. This is fine, totally fine. Zira turned to look at him. Her eyes caught the light, silver and bright. Are you uncomfortable? Just trying to process this, he admitted. Humans don't usually. Share rest space, she finished. I know, but Lithurians do. It promotes trust and stability. He smiled faintly. Well, you're definitely earning my trust right now. She studied his face. Your humor increases when nervous. Yeah, he said softly. That's kind of a human thing. For a long moment they lay there in silence. The ship creaked softly around them. Outside, the stars drifted by distant, endless, uncaring. But inside that small, glowing nest, the universe felt strangely small and warm. Zira shifted slightly, her head resting closer to his shoulder. Eli, she whispered. He turned his head. Yeah. Your heart rate is fast. He laughed quietly. It tends to do that when I'm sharing a bed with someone glowing. She looked down at herself. Does it bother you? No, he said, voice gentle now. It's beautiful. Her eyes softened again. Then I will not dim it. He smiled faintly, and for the first time that night he didn't feel cold. As his eyes began to drift shut, he felt her fingers brush his, just a simple, curious touch. But it sent a warmth through him that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. Before sleep claimed him, he heard her whisper quietly, almost to herself. Humans are very warm creatures. He smiled in the dark. You have no idea. Outside, the void waited silent and vast. But inside that glowing room, two beings from different worlds shared something fragile, something neither of them fully understood. And somewhere deep inside the ship's quiet circuits, a new kind of warmth began to bloom. When Captain Eli Reyes woke up, the first thing he noticed was warmth. The second thing was that the warmth was breathing. He blinked, confused at the soft golden light around him, the faint scent of ozone and something floral in the air. Then memory crashed in like a meteor. The broken heating unit, Zira's glowing nest, her quiet voice saying, You invited me to share your rest space." "Oh no," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. "It wasn't a dream." Zira stirred beside him, her silver eyes fluttering open. "Good morning, Captain," she said softly. "Your body temperature has stabilized." He froze. You're still here." "Of course," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. "You slept soundly. I monitored your vitals to ensure optimal rest." "You monitored my vitals," he repeated, voice caught between disbelief and laughter. She nodded seriously. "Your heart rate was elevated during the night. I assume it was due to environmental adaptation." "Yeah, sure," he said, trying not to smile. "Let's call it that." Zira tilted her head, confused but intrigued. "You are amused again." "Yeah," he said with a sigh. "You're a lot, Zira." Her glow brightened slightly, the Lithurian version of a smile. "Thank you." "That wasn't exactly a compliment," he mumbled, though his grin betrayed him. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. Her bed, if you could call it that, felt alive, adjusting to his movement like soft liquid light. "How does this thing even work?" "It reacts to bioenergy," she explained. "It senses our heart rhythms and adjusts temperature and pressure accordingly." "Right," he said, stretching. "So basically it's cuddling us on purpose." "Yes," she said simply. He blinked. "You really don't do subtext, do you?" "I am still learning human communication," she admitted, "but I find your reactions fascinating." Eli chuckled. "I bet you do." Zira studied him carefully. "You have a unique ability," Eli raised. He raised a brow. "Oh, what's that?" "You make me feel things I cannot define. It is not fear, it is not logic, it is something warm." Eli paused, unsure whether to laugh or melt. "That's probably a good sign." "I wish to study it further," she said earnestly. He swallowed. "Maybe, let's not turn that into a science experiment, yeah." Before she could answer, the ship suddenly shuddered. The lights flickered. Eli shot up. "What now?" "Gravity stabilizers are fluctuating," Zira said quickly, already tapping her wrist console. "Great," he muttered, pulling on his jacket. "Can't even have one normal morning." He started for the door, but Zira stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Wait, your blood pressure is high." "Zira, I don't have time for." She stepped closer, eyes glowing with that gentle, otherworldly light. "You are frightened." "I'm not frightened," he said, softer than he meant to. Her gaze didn't waver. "You protect others, but who protects you?" For a second, he forgot about the alarms. He forgot about the cold metal corridors waiting outside. There was something in her voice, quiet and aching, that reached through his defenses. Then she smiled faintly. "Go, Captain. I will stabilize the auxiliary systems." He hesitated. "Zira." She gave a tiny nod. "I trust you." That simple phrase hit him harder than any explosion. He squeezed her hand once, then turned and ran into the corridor. The emergency passed within the hour. A power surge from the external sensors had overloaded the stabilizers, easy enough to fix. But by the time Eli returned to Zira's quarters, his mind was still replaying her words. "I trust you." She was sitting cross-legged on the glowing nest, her datapad hovering beside her. When he entered, she looked up, her light softening. "You are unharmed." "Thanks to your backup system," he said. "You were right about the bypass." Her expression softened. "You sound surprised." "I'm not," he said honestly. "I just forget how good you are at this." Her glow brightened again. "Compliments from you are rare. I will record this one." He laughed. "You're impossible." "I prefer efficient," she said with mock seriousness. For a moment the tension broke, replaced by the easy rhythm they'd fallen into. Then her eyes drifted down, thoughtful. "Eli," she said quietly, "earlier you seemed uncomfortable." He blinked. "When?" "This morning when you woke." He scratched his neck awkwardly. "Well, you can't exactly blame me. Not every day I wake up glowing in someone else's bed." Did I offend you? She asked, genuinely worried. No, no, not at all, he said quickly. Humans have different customs, that's all. She studied him, so sharing warmth does not indicate affection. He froze. Well, it can. Her silver eyes locked onto his. Then did it. Eli felt his brain short-circuit. Zira. I wish to understand, she said softly, her hand finding his again. Last night when you smiled in your sleep, my sensors registered a change in your body's energy field. You were calm, at peace. Was that because of me? He looked into her glowing eyes and realized he was dangerously close to telling the truth. Maybe, he said finally, maybe it was. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The soft hum of the ship filled the silence. Her hand stayed on his, her touch light but steady, not studying him, not scanning, just feeling. Then suddenly her datapad beeped. The sound startled them both. She blinked, pulling back. Oh, the temperature in your quarters has returned to normal. Eli laughed awkwardly. Guess that means I can go back to my own bed, huh? Zira's glow dimmed slightly. If that is your preference. He hesitated, then smiled. Maybe I'll stay here a little longer, in case the temperature drops again. Her lips curved, small but real. For safety, of course. Of course, he said, grinning. And as he sat beside her, the ship steady once more, he realized something simple and terrifying. That the cold void of space had never felt warmer than when she was near. Outside, the stars drifted endlessly, silent witnesses to the strange, bright thing beginning to spark between a human who joked too easily and an alien who took every word to heart. By the time morning cycle hit, the starlets felt unusually alive. The hum of the engines was steady again, the temperature had stabilized, and the crew had finally stopped grumbling about cold air and sleepless nights. Everything seemed back to normal. Except for the captain. Eli Reyes could feel eyes on him everywhere he went. He walked into the mess hall, still half asleep and clutching a steaming mug of black coffee like it was holy water. The moment the door slid open, conversation stopped. A dozen crew members turned toward him with grins that were just a little too wide. Morning, Captain, said Lieutenant Miko, smirking. Sleep well. Eli frowned. Yeah, why? Oh, no reason, Miko said innocently. Just heard you found a new way to keep warm during system failures. A few people snickered. Someone coughed the word alien into their hand. Eli blinked, his mind catching up a moment too late. Wait, what did you hear? Corporal Tessa piped up from the back. That you and Dr. Zira were, She wiggled her eyebrows. Eli nearly choked on his coffee. Excuse me. Miko leaned on the table, grinning. Hey, Captain, no judgment here. Cross-species diplomacy, right? We're all proud of you. Diplomacy, Eli groaned, covering his face. Unbelievable. They laughed, but good-naturedly. To them, it was just gossip, an entertaining story to lighten a long journey through empty space. But to Eli, it felt like standing on a stage with no lines to say. He turned, ready to storm out, only to stop dead. Zira stood in the doorway, datapad in hand, glowing softly as always. She looked at the room full of grinning humans, at Eli's red face, and tilted her head. Is there an issue? The silence was instant. Tessa whispered, Oh stars, she's here. Zira's gaze drifted from one crew member to another, confusion clear in her silver eyes. You are all starring, she said calmly. Is there a malfunction? Eli sighed. Zira, maybe we should. But she turned to him. They are discussing our shared rest space, yes. Half the room froze, and the other half exploded in laughter. Eli groaned, Zira. She blinked, looking around innocently. Was I not supposed to confirm? Oh, for the love of... He grabbed her wrist gently and guided her out of the mess hall before anyone else could say another word. Behind them, laughter echoed through the corridor. Once the door slid shut behind them, Eli leaned against the wall and sighed deeply. You just made me the main character in a ship-wide soap opera. Zira frowned, her glow dimming slightly. Soap opera. It means drama, he said tiredly. Lots of it. I do not understand. Why would your crew find our arrangement amusing? Because, he said, pinching the bridge of his nose, they think it means we're, romantically involved. She blinked, are we not? Eli's jaw dropped. What? Her tone remained calm, almost curious. We share warmth, we trust each other, we rest in physical proximity. On Lithuria, such actions imply emotional connection. He stared at her, brain short-circuiting. Zira, humans don't, we don't just. Her head tilted again. Do you not feel connected to me? Eli opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not the point. She looked down, her light fading to a soft blue, sadness, he realized. Then I have misread your customs again. No, no, hey, don't do that, he said quickly. You didn't do anything wrong, it's just different. Humans make things complicated. That's our thing. Complicated, she repeated softly. You say that as if it is a defense mechanism. He gave a half-smile. Maybe it is. She studied him silently for a moment, her expression unreadable. Eli, if our actions cause you shame, I will refrain from further contact. His heart lurched. Wait, what? No, Zira, that's not. You are the captain, she said quietly. Your reputation matters to your crew. He took a step closer. I don't care what they think. You do, she said gently. It is written on your face. Eli sighed, rubbing his neck. Okay, maybe I do, but not because of what you think. It's just they'll twist it, turn it into something it's not. They'll make it sound like I took advantage of you. Zira blinked slowly, silver eyes wide. You did not. I know that, you know that, but humans, we like our gossip. She frowned. That is illogical. He smiled faintly. Welcome to humanity. For a moment, silence filled the corridor. The hum of the ship, the distant pulse of the engines, everything felt smaller. Then Zira spoke softly. Eli, on Lithuria, we believe that shared warmth creates a bond, a thread between two souls. It is not gossip to us. It is truth. He looked at her, really looked, at the soft light glowing beneath her skin, at the sincerity in her eyes, at how completely unaware she was of how much she affected him. He swallowed. Yeah, well, maybe humans could use a little more of that. She tilted her head. Of what? Truth. Her glow brightened again, warm and golden. Then I am glad you are human. That made him laugh softly. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a warning. Both, she said, and for the first time she smiled, truly smiled, a slow, bright thing that made the hallway feel warmer than the entire ship. Eli found himself smiling back. You really are impossible. I prefer curious, she said again, echoing their first banter. He chuckled. Yeah, I remember. They stood there in quiet understanding for a moment, the air between them filled with something unspoken, fragile but real. Then the ship's comms crackled. Captain Ray's, report to the bridge. We've got an unidentified signal at range 3. Eli straightened. Of course, he muttered. The universe really doesn't want us to have one calm morning. Zira stepped beside him. May I accompany you? He smiled, already moving. Wouldn't dream of leaving you behind. As they walked side by side toward the bridge, the laughter and rumors behind them seemed to fade into static, replaced by something steadier, something growing between them that no gossip could touch. And for the first time, Eli wondered if maybe, just maybe, the joke had turned into something real. The bridge of the Starlets buzzed with tension. The crew moved quickly, voices low but sharp. Warning lights flashed amber across the consoles, painting the room in a nervous glow. Unidentified signal at range 3, Lieutenant Miko reported. It's not in the registry, Captain. No ID, no response code. Eli Reyes leaned over the main display, eyes narrowing. How close? Closing fast, Miko said. Trajectory suggests intercept course. Zira stood beside Eli, calm but alert. Her glow dimmed slightly, signaling concentration. Energy readings indicate high power output, possibly a battleship. Eli frowned. Out here, that doesn't make sense. She tilted her head, unless it's not supposed to. He looked at her, half amused even in the tension. You always know how to make things sound comforting. It was not intended as comfort, she replied. I noticed, he said dryly, then turned to the crew. Shields up. Divert auxiliary power from navigation. If they want to look, they can look at our backside and not our engines. The crew hurried to comply. The starlings shuddered slightly as the energy fields shifted. Zira's silver eyes stayed locked on the readings. Captain, the ship is scanning us. Eli leaned closer. Active scan. Yes. He muttered under his breath. Great, probably just pirates looking for scrap. But deep down he wasn't so sure. Minutes passed. The silence stretched heavy and uncertain. Then suddenly the console flared red. Impact warning, shouted Miko. They fired something small but fast. Brace, Eli barked. The starlings rocked violently as the projectile hit. The lights flickered. Sparks flew from a nearby panel. Someone screamed. Report. Minor hull breach in Sector 7, Miko called. Auto seal is engaging, but... Another explosion cut him off. The ship jolted again, alarms wailing through every corridor. Zira grabbed the console for balance. Energy surge detected near the core. Radiation levels are rising. Eli's pulse spiked. They hit the reactor feed line, damn it. He spun toward the crew. Miko, you have the bridge, Zira with me. Without hesitation, she followed. The corridor was filled with smoke and flashing lights. The floor vibrated beneath their boots. The starlings was alive, but in pain. Eli coughed as he ran. We need to reach engineering before that surge cooks the whole ship. I am reading high instability, Zira said, voice steady despite the chaos. Radiation is spreading fast. The coolant system is failing. He gritted his teeth. Of course it is. Nothing on this ship ever works when I need it to. Even in crisis, Zira managed a small, breathless laugh. Perhaps your ship enjoys testing your limits. Yeah, well, it's succeeding. They reached the reactor room. The doors hissed open to reveal chaos, flickering lights, steam, and the sharp smell of ozone. The main conduit glowed dangerously bright, leaking blue energy like liquid fire. Eli rushed forward. We need to vent the chamber. Zira scanned the system. Manual controls are offline. You'll have to override directly. He cursed, figures. Captain, she said firmly, grabbing his arm. The radiation here is lethal for humans. I don't have time to be careful, he said, yanking open the access panel. Zira stepped forward. Then I will do it. He turned sharply. No, you can't handle the mechanical system. It needs muscle. I am stronger than you, she said simply. He hesitated. Maybe, but you're more important to this ship than I am. Her expression softened. Eli Reyes, she said quietly, you think too little of yourself. He gave her a crooked grin. And you think too much of me. Before she could reply, another shockwave hit. The reactor hissed louder. Zira stumbled and Eli caught her, his arms wrapping around her without thought. For a second the world stopped. Her glow flared gold, reflecting off his visor. Their eyes met, too close, too alive. Then Eli broke away. We're out of time. He forced the override lever down. Sparks erupted. The control rod screeched as it locked into place. Energy roared like thunder. System stabilizing, Zira called over the noise. Radiation dropping. Eli exhaled in relief. We did it. But his victory was short-lived. The last surge flared through the conduit, slamming into him with a crack of blue light. Eli, Zira screamed. He hit the floor hard, smoke rising from his sleeve. Zira dropped beside him, panic flashing in her silver eyes. She pressed her glowing hands over his chest, energy pulsing through her palms. "Stay with me, please." He coughed, weakly laughing. "You know, I didn't think space would be this exciting." "Be silent," she said fiercely. "You are hurt." He smiled faintly. "You care." Her voice trembled. "Of course I care." The glow from her hand spread over his burns, a soft warmth replacing the pain. Slowly, his breathing steadied. When his eyes opened again, she was still holding him, face inches from his. Her bioluminescent freckles shimmered like constellations. "Zira," he whispered, "you're glowing again." "It helps healing," she said softly. He grinned weakly. "No, it's more than that." She blinked, confused, but didn't pull away. "You risked your life to protect me." "Protecting people's kind of my thing," he murmured, "even glowing ones." Her eyes softened. "Humans are strange." "Yeah," he said, smiling faintly, "but you like us." "I like you," she whispered. The words hung between them, fragile, dangerous, beautiful. He looked at her, every thought scattering into static. "Zira." Before he could finish, the comm crackled to life. "Captain Ray's enemy ship retreating, damage contained." Eli closed his eyes, groaning. Of course, perfect timing. Zira helped him sit up, her touch gentle. "You will recover." "Yeah," he said, catching his breath. "I always do." But as they left the reactor room, her hand still resting lightly on his arm, he knew something had changed. Not just between them, but inside him. He'd seen a dozen alien worlds, fought pirates in storms, but nothing had ever shaken him like her voice whispering, "I like you." And as the starlets glided through the quiet aftermath of battle, Eli couldn't help wondering what would come next, because this time, the danger wasn't from outside. It was from the warmth blooming deep within his human heart. The starlets drifted silently through the calm after chaos. Outside, the stars glowed in a scattered blanket, soft and endless. Inside, the ship buzzed quietly with recovery, repairs underway, systems returning to life, and hearts still catching up to what had almost been lost. Captain Eli Reyes sat on the edge of the medbay cot, his arm wrapped in a sterilized bandage that smelled faintly of metal and mint. His burns had mostly healed, thanks to Zira's glowing touch, but the memory of that moment, her panicked voice, her trembling hands, still echoed in his mind. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Zira stepped in. Her glow was dimmer than usual, faint like twilight instead of sunrise. Her posture was calm, but her eyes were stormy silver, unreadable. She carried a datapad against her chest like a shield. "You should be resting," she said quietly. Eli smiled, though his voice was rough. "You sound like my doctor." "I am your doctor," she reminded him gently. "Right," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Then I'm officially ignoring your medical advice." She blinked, confused. "Why?" "Because I wanted to see you." Her glow brightened slightly, like sunlight slipping through clouds. "I am here." "Yeah," he said softly, "you always are." For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the ship filled the quiet space between them. Then Zira stepped closer, her eyes scanning him carefully. "Your vitals are stable, but your energy readings fluctuate. You are still weak." "I'll live." "You almost didn't," she said, her voice breaking just slightly at the edge. That stopped him. He looked up, and she wasn't hiding it anymore, the emotion trembling in her voice, the fear that hadn't faded. "Zira." She set down the datapad, her hands curling at her sides. "You risked your life for me." He shrugged. "That's what captains do." "No," she said sharply, her glow flaring bright gold. "That is what you do. You put others before yourself until you burn." Eli frowned. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me why," she said softly. "Why did you push me away from the reactor? Why did you take the impact instead?" He hesitated. The truth was tangled somewhere between duty and something far more personal. "I couldn't watch you get hurt," he said finally. "Because I am part of your crew." He looked at her, the words coming out before he could stop them. "Because you mean more than that." Her glow stilled, then softened into a deep trembling gold. "More how?" Eli exhaled slowly. "You really like direct questions, don't you?" "I do not understand avoidance," she said simply. "When I feel something, I say it." He laughed softly, a little helplessly. "Yeah, I've noticed." Then, before he could second-guess himself, he looked her in the eye and said, "Zira, when I thought I'd lost you, everything in me just stopped. You're not just another crew member. You're," he broke off, searching for the right word, "you're important." Her eyes shimmered like stars over water. "Important." He nodded, "More than I want to admit." She stepped closer, her voice low. "On Lithuria, when we find someone who makes our hearts resonate, when our glow changes because of them, it is called a bond spark." Eli smiled faintly. "Sounds poetic." "It is rare," she whispered, "and dangerous." "Dangerous." "Because it changes us, it makes us vulnerable." Her voice trembled. "I did not think it could happen with someone not of my kind. But when you risked your life, when I held you and felt your heartbeat fade," she closed her eyes. "I felt the spark." Eli's throat tightened. "Zira." "I am frightened," she admitted, opening her eyes again. "Of this, of you." He blinked. "You're afraid of me." "I am afraid of what you make me feel," she whispered. "It is not logical. It is not in my data. It is something I cannot study or control." Eli stood slowly, ignoring the twinge in his arm. "Zira, feelings aren't meant to be controlled. That's the whole point." She looked at him, eyes wide and uncertain. "Then what am I supposed to do?" He smiled softly. "Maybe just feel it." For a long, fragile second, they stood in silence, two beings from different worlds, bound by something that neither science nor reason could define. Zira's glow flickered brighter, then steadied. "Humans are very strange." Eli chuckled quietly. "Yeah, we are, but sometimes strange is good." She tilted her head. "And you feel this spark too." He took a breath. "I don't know if it's a spark or lightning or just your glow messing with my head, but yeah, I feel it." Her eyes softened, light shimmering through her skin like dawn through fog. "Then we are both doomed." He laughed quietly. "I've been doomed before." Zira smiled, small but real. "You do not regret it." "Not one bit." Something changed in her expression then, something vulnerable and fierce all at once. She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the faint heat of her light against his skin. "Eli," she whispered, "if you were Lithurian, this would mean a lifetime bond." He swallowed, voice rough. "And if you were human, this would mean trouble." Her laughter was soft and musical, the kind that seemed to vibrate through the air. "Perhaps we can meet in the middle." He smiled. "Maybe we already did." For a moment time slowed. Her hand lifted, glowing faintly as she traced the air near his cheek, not touching but close enough that he could feel the warmth. "Your heart," she murmured, "is very loud." He chuckled, a little breathless. "You have that effect on people." Her eyes shone. "Then I am glad." The ship hummed softly around them. Outside, a streak of light crossed the stars like a whisper of fate. As they stood there, human and alien, logic and emotion, science and spark, Eli realized something simple and terrifying. He'd spent his whole life chasing adventure among the stars, but somehow, the most dangerous, beautiful discovery he'd ever made was standing right in front of him. And she was smiling. The Starlings had seen better days. After the attack, the crew worked for hours repairing the ship's scars, sealing cracks, realigning systems. Now the engines purred again, steady and calm, like a heart that had survived the storm. But Captain Eli Reyes couldn't sleep. He sat in his dim cabin, staring out at the stars through the viewport. They drifted by, silent, cold, and infinite. yet inside him everything was loud. He kept thinking about her. Zira. Her voice. Her light. The way she had looked at him in the medbay, as if seeing him not just as a captain, but as something hers. He smiled to himself, then sighed. "I'm doomed," he whispered. The door hissed open. "Then you're talking to yourself again," came a soft, familiar voice. Eli turned, startled but smiling. "Zira, you should really stop sneaking up on people." She stepped inside, carrying a small metallic orb that pulsed gently. "I do not sneak, you simply do not listen." He chuckled, "Fair." She looked around his cabin, curious as always. The room was small, just a bed, a desk, and a window to the stars. She set the orb down. It expanded into a faintly glowing lantern that filled the space with golden light. "The heating unit," she said. "It is still malfunctioning." Eli shrugged. "Yeah, engineering says it'll be fixed tomorrow." Zira tilted her head. "But it is cold now." He smirked. "I'll survive." Her silver eyes softened. "Your definition of survival concerns me." He leaned back against the bed frame. "You know, I'm starting to think you just enjoy worrying about me." She blinked. "I do not enjoy it, I simply find it difficult not to." That simple confession hit him harder than any plasma blast. "Zira," he began, but she lifted a hand. "You should rest," she said quietly. "I will monitor the systems through the night." He grinned. "You just want an excuse to stay." Her glow brightened slightly. "Perhaps." There was a pause. The air between them felt thick, warm despite the chill. She stepped closer to the bed. "Eli," she said softly, "do you remember your offer?" He raised an eyebrow. "Which one? I make a lot of bad offers." "The one about sharing your rest space," she said, her voice innocent but her gaze sharp. He laughed under his breath. "You really don't let things go, do you?" "I do not forget meaningful words," she replied. "Zira, that was a joke," she finished for him. He hesitated. "Yeah." She smiled faintly. "And yet it brought us here." He stared at her, at the soft light glowing beneath her skin, at the calm strength in her eyes. "You really think I meant it?" "I think," she said slowly, "that part of you did." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The ship's hum filled the silence like a heartbeat. Then, without another word, she moved closer and sat gently on the edge of his bed. The light from her skin spread softly across the sheets. Eli swallowed. "You're really doing this, huh?" "You are shivering again," she said, almost teasing. "It would be illogical to refuse assistance." He chuckled. "Right for science." "For warmth," she corrected. He sighed, shaking his head, but he couldn't stop smiling. "You win." He slid under the covers beside her. The air filled with a faint hum as her bioluminescence brightened, wrapping him in gentle heat. Her glow pulsed softly, like the rhythm of a heartbeat syncing with his own. For a moment they just lay there. No words, no tension, just quiet, shared warmth in the cold of space. "You know," Eli murmured, "this is probably against about 5 regulations." "Then we are both guilty," she said calmly. He laughed quietly. "You're impossible." "I prefer determined." Her voice was close now, low and musical. He turned his head and found her watching him, her eyes silver and soft. "I never understood your kind," she whispered. "You are fragile, impulsive, foolish at times, but you burn so brightly." He smiled faintly. "You make it sound like a compliment." "It is," she said. He studied her face, the smooth glow of her skin, the faint pulse beneath it. "You're different, too. I've met dozens of alien species, but none like you." "Because none of them tried to sleep in your bed," she teased. He laughed again, shaking his head. "Touché." Then her expression softened, all teasing fading away. "Eli," she said quietly, "if I told you that I could stay here with you, even after our mission ends, would you want that?" His breath caught. "Zira." "I do not mean as your scientist," she continued. I mean as something else, whatever this is between us. He sat up slightly, meeting her gaze. Zira, if I said yes, would it mean the same thing to you that it means to me? She tilted her head. You think our meanings are different. I think, he said softly, you deserve more than a human who keeps almost getting himself killed. She smiled, a soft, radiant thing that made his chest ache. And I think you deserve someone who will not let you face the cold alone. That silenced him completely. Her glow dimmed as she leaned closer, close enough for him to feel her warmth against his skin. On my world, she whispered, when two beings share warmth by choice, it means they choose to face all winters together. His heart thudded hard. And what do humans call that? Love, he said quietly. Zira blinked, her glow deepening to a golden hue. Then I love you, Eli Reyes. He smiled, eyes shining. Guess that makes two of us. She tilted her head, confused but happy. Then we are bound by two worlds. He chuckled softly. Yeah, guess we are. Outside, the stars drifted like silver snow. The ship's engines hummed a lullaby through the quiet. Zira rested her head gently against his shoulder. Humans are very warm, she murmured. He smiled, eyes closing. And aliens take jokes very seriously. Her laughter, soft, musical, filled the cabin. Perhaps that is why we fit. He looked at her one last time before drifting into sleep. Yeah, he whispered, perfect fit. And as they lay together under the golden glow of her light, the cold universe outside didn't seem so endless anymore. Somewhere beyond the stars, the universe turned, and for once, neither of them felt alone.